I'm Judy Farrell, and I have a statement from Angel, who could not be here tonight. Good evening to you all, and thank you for being here and demonstrating your interest in the Canyon County legislative races. I regret not being able to be with you and appreciate this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Angel Zymetz. I am a wife, a mother of 3, and a recent NNU graduate. I was a student teacher last year and got to see firsthand how hard teachers work and how important they are to our kids. I could not believe that the legislators of this state, men and women who claim to care about Idaho's citizens and their future, would undermine our educational system as they were doing. I ran for office in hopes of making people understand. I am one of the newly certified teachers that Luna is so proud of, and I am overwhelmed and exhausted. I would not make it day to day without the help of my fellow teachers. I believe we develop a cohesiveness that few outsiders would understand. I think that everyone knows that teachers spend their days managing too many students and their evenings grading papers and planning student activities. These are not, however, the most important things a teacher does. Teachers listen and motivate. When students try and do not succeed, a teacher must learn how and make changes in their presentation. Maybe the student doesn't understand. Students can talk 6 months in advance of their understanding. Maybe they have 2 concepts confused. Students may try to hide problems from teachers they don't really trust. You must convince them that their learning, not their grade or their peer approval, is your objective as well as theirs. And teachers motivate. A few students are naturally motivated, but many more work because someone cares. They want you to notice what they are accomplishing, to say their name, to point out what they did right, to smile at them. Others have given up pleasing teachers and parents. Teachers must search for ways to convince them to try. Bills and fireworks from a computer screen are not the same. The legislators of this state have chosen to overcrowd classrooms in grades K through 8 in order to provide online classes to students in grades 9 to 12, in spite of the fact that results elsewhere show that such classes result in a higher dropout rate and excessive cheating. I never dreamed of being a politician until I saw our current legislators ignore the testimony of hundreds of Idaho parents and teachers. Thank you. This is from Angel Zymetz, who's running for seat 10B.
Thank you. Now we have one race in Canyon County, and that is for sheriff. And so our first candidate who will come up will be Kieran Donahue.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for sponsoring this. My name's Kieran Donahue. It's probably the hardest name outside of Leafs to pronounce up here tonight. But currently, I'm the Chief Deputy for the Canyon County Sheriff's Office, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge the presence of our current Sheriff, Chris Smith, here in the crowd tonight, and a vast majority of officers, both men and women, here to support this forum. Law enforcement in Canyon County is very complex. We have a lot of issues. We have a lot of things that we have to deal with that are influenced by outside of our control, specifically methamphetamine trade by Mexican cartels that bring our dope in from Mexico right into Canyon County. We are a distribution point, which causes us great challenges on a variety of levels. As an officer with Canyon County, I've been with them 8.5 years now under the tutelage of Sheriff Smith and others. I have risen through the ranks as a deputy, a detention officer, a detention deputy. Now I am the chief deputy. In that time, I've spent considerable years undercover and working the streets of our county, and not just this county, but adjoining counties as a member of the FBI Violent Crime and Gang Task Force with the FBI. Those resources that the FBI and the ATF bring to this county are absolutely unmeasurable in our fight against gangs, violent criminals, and drug cartels who wish to influence the lives of each and every one of you and take away socially and economically the lifestyle that you've come to expect. It's an incredibly demanding effort that we put out there. Without the support of those federal agencies and the intercooperation by all law enforcement, both state, local, state, and federal, we could not be sitting here today in the safety that we enjoy. If you look back in 2004, we had nearly 200 shootings in a 6-month period in Canyon County alone. 200. We're down to a few each year. That's because the efforts that multi-agencies are putting out to put an end to this kind of activity. I've been at the forefront of that race for a lot of years. Now I've moved into the administrative cycle. I understand what it takes to be an administrator at this level. I understand what the needs of our communities are. I've been a member of the Critical Incident Task Force. I've been a crisis negotiator. I've been an incident commander when we have situations that sometimes you people don't have to know about in terms of bad things happening in our streets. We're there each and every day, and now I have an opportunity to lead our 300-plus personnel in our efforts to keep our public safe. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you taking a look at what we have to offer. I'm Kieran Donahue, and I appreciate you being here.
Okay, and Robert Muse.
I'd like to thank everybody here for being at this forum. I'm going to start off with a little personal history. I've been married to my loving wife of 34 years, 2 sons, daughter-in-law, grandsons, and other families that live here in Canyon County. I'm currently a business owner. I'm also a state licensed bail bond agent and fugitive recovery agent. I'm also an appointed officer of the court unsupervised. I have no civil or criminal complaints since I've been in the criminal justice industry as a private individual. I also am finishing up my PhD, a doctorate in public administration. I hold 2 master's degrees, one in public safety with national critical preparedness. I hold a graduate degree in human social services that specializes in mental health and addictions. I also hold a degree, Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. I have 4 specialty Bachelor of Science certifications from courts to other types of investigative fields. I'm also the private Director of Safety and Security at a facility in Caldwell. I have 12 uniformed, fully armed private individuals conducting what we call private police on private property. We deal with the Hispanic community. Components of that community range from the Mexican Mafia to the North and South Side gangs. We enforce all the civil liberties and private property rights that are afforded to the owner of that property. We have very little or no incident. Caldwell Police has never had to engage or respond to any critical incident on property. At the same time, I've handled fugitive recovery work for the last 7 years from North Carolina to Los Angeles, again with no civil or criminal complaint. That involves a lot of knowledge about constitutional authority, the ability to know what those civil rights are when you're in each different state and jurisdiction, the ability to also understand what the private property rights are when you're entering somebody's residence or business property or any other type of property. I'm also been honorably discharged from the United States Air Force, where I served as a security police officer. That was with the Strategic Air Command. My job was to secure all the nuclear weapons of mass destruction that involved first launch vehicles, everything from missiles to bombers. I served as a fire team leader, squad leader, went to several different types of academies, air-based ground defense academies. Camp Bullis, where the 101st Airborne trains. I've been at Lackland, trained at the security police also there. I'm also a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Those sheriffs that are trying to restore our Constitution are Sheriff Mack and Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Thank you for your time, and vote for Robert Muse for Canyon County Sheriff.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and let the candidates get up on our stage, and we're going to just rearrange things. We'll probably resume within 5 minutes. There's several chairs.
No, so it's just. Where am I signing? Here. Am I here? Yeah, we can just do that, I guess. Me and you right next to each other here. So
I think so.
Big chairs or the little chairs? Well, Matt's not here, so once you guys get matching chairs, and I can grab. You moving this out first? Well, sure. I might use that one, see the big chairs and little chairs. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I could use one of these, seriously. Well, we might as well both go with little chairs. What's that? We're about the same. Big enemy and a little. I think we should take the company chair. I don't know. I'll send a big chair over this way. Where do you want? I'll take a big chair. Here? Yeah, we'll both. Okay. You can handle this one. It's just an hour. You want us to move down a little bit?
I just want something high.
Yeah, you need one of these.
I am too.
Okay. You want us to move
I
down
am
this way?
short.
Okay. Let's do this.
Is anybody sitting right here?
You got two? Yeah. Yeah. Jim, I think you want me to scoot over there. Okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna.
Well, yeah. Do we need I think we're supposed to have the two blue chairs here.
Yeah, there you go. I'll give you that one. Thank you. I'm gonna take my chair.
If I need a phone book, you're going to have to find one for me.
Is that yours, Clayton? Yes.
You're being treated fairly. Brendan and these
Yes, that's right.
Is it with me?
I can have my own.
Slave. Rhymes with safe.
I thought I was being.
Kieran got it wrong.
Okay.
Check.
That's funny. Talk about my name being hard to pronounce.
It's actually Dream Hall. There you go, Daryl. Okay.
I won't be saying your last name.
Let's give ourselves a little.
Like the seniors do, Dad, with them. Close the gates at 9 to keep us in.
Yeah.
All right, here. Can you tell where my name is? I assume it's here. Oh.
Everybody have water? Y'all have water?
They should all have water. There should be
Water down there.
Okay, if I could get everybody to take a seat. Thank you for your patience. And can you each check your mic and make sure it's correct?
Can you hear me now?
Testing.
Now, you also need to know that those are hot mics, and so everything you do up there can be heard. And if you're checking your cell phones, I have a webcam back there checking. So if someone's feeding you answers, we'll catch you. Someone told me that happened at one election at a candidates forum, and they told me that they asked me to please tell the candidates they can't use their phone. I don't think I have the power to do that, but we put a webcam up just in case. The two men running for sheriff set it up for us.
I have a warrant.
We appreciate that. Thank you, because we can see what you're doing right up here. Okay? So now, all of you gentlemen who are, and if you're standing, please take a seat. We're going to be here for another hour, and there's plenty of seats now, and it always makes me nervous. So it's not all about me, but we have seats, so please take them and enjoy them. And thank you to all the candidates for sticking to your time. Before we move further, and I think the mayor has left, but I intended to thank the city of Nampa and Mayor Tom Dale for allowing us to use this room. We have an obligation to be out of here to end, and we will end at 8:30. And We have to be out of the building by about 8:40, and that's so that no one incurs overtime hours, and I do not want to be writing a check to the city of Nampa, okay? So we try to respect that. And I also want to introduce some of the elected officials that we have here. We have Canyon County Commissioner Steve Rule. We have Canyon County Clerk Chris Yamamoto. We have retiring sheriff in Canyon County, Chris Smith. And we have legislator Gary Collins, who's running unopposed. We also have Rob Oates, who is running for Congress here. Did I miss any other elected officials? Okay, all right. Again, we thank everyone for coming tonight and appreciate your participation. So we'll have questions that are completely dedicated to our sheriff's candidates, and we'll have questions that apply to all of you. Those of you who do not have an opponent, you are welcome to answer the questions, and you're welcome to take a pass. It's whatever you'd like to do. So it's your call. If you decide to take a pass, then you need to pass all. You don't get to pick and choose which questions you're going to answer. So, but I think we'd all like to hear from you, and it does help people in the audience to evaluate who they support, whether or not you have an opponent here or not. So anyway, all right. So moving on, we will go ahead and open with the first question. And remember, candidates, you have an opportunity to ask your opponent a question. Those of you who do not have an opponent, you get to pass on this one, okay? Those of you who do have an opponent, have 2 questions ready, because they are usually our best questions, and unless you ask how old someone is, which is a softball question, it really helps us get to the heart of who our candidates are. So be prepared to ask your opponent 2 questions. All right, and we'll start down with the sheriff's candidates. As you lie in bed in the confines of Canyon County, what keeps you awake at night and why? And Robert, we'll start with you, and you have 3 minutes. But you don't have to take all that time if you don't want to. And the mic is right there. Be sure you pull it in your direction.
I lay in bed and I ask, how much experience do you need to have to be a patriot in this country? What does your citizen status, your citizenship mean to you while you lay in bed and watch our country debt grow $16 million plus? What do you have for your future generation of children, grandchildren? What am I going to leave behind if I sit to the side and be quiet and not challenge this political process? The county sheriff is America's last hope, bar none. That is it. When we lose the county sheriff to whatever form of government that comes after this republic, we will no longer be the United States of America. The founders of America warned us that we could lose more freedoms from gradual encroachments by those in authority than by the sudden usurpation from any foreign government or enemy. This is certainly truer today than it ever has been with the 16 trillion in national debt. It appears we've lost our way. The battle in America is now for our country's soul and the last bastion of hope for freedom and liberty. Let us not be deceived from the political whining for universal health care, gun control, equality through governmental redistribution of wealth, and removal of religious beliefs and expressions from our public institutions that are being removed by despotism. When all government is drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will render powerless the checks and balances provided and will continue to be an oppressive government. And that's what Thomas Jefferson warned us about. I ask every citizen, each police officer, every peace officer, and especially every sheriff in America, that all of us come to the understanding that the sheriff has the authority, power, and duty to end any oppressive government, whether it's federal, state, county, or city. My impact, thus, is inescapable. The county sheriff is our nation's first and last line of defense for the preservation and return to our fundamental and individual liberty. As sheriff, I would be the people's last hope. When you connect an astounding truth we all reconnect to freedom. This position is what makes the position of Canyon County Sheriff such a high and noble office. Thank you.
Okay, Karen?
You know, it's a great question, and it's multifaceted. What keeps me awake at night is worrying about our children and our children's children, and you know what they face from the criminal element here in not just Canyon County, but I think we have to look both to Treasure Valley and the state of Idaho and beyond. We are inundated in an epidemic of methamphetamine use and sales. It's not a small issue, and it's not one that we'll solve overnight. It's one we've been fighting for a long time, and we are not winning the war. That is a huge concern, both from a social and economic standpoint, insurance, medical, and just the social degradation of our children, our schools, etc. I worry about the sexual offenders that we have seen a dramatic increase here in both in just Canyon County and state of Idaho. With growth of our communities and our county and our cities, we're going to have a growth of criminal element. You can't get away from it. No culture in existence ever has. So we're not immune to that. I worry about the epidemic of domestic violence that we see, that we know now by statistics 1 in 4 women will be a victim of domestic violence by a domestic partner in their lifetime, that 1 in 7 men will be a victim of domestic violence in their lifetime, that on average 3 women a day are killed in this country by their domestic partner. Think about those statistics. That's what keeps me up at night, and how I will keep the resources available to my sheriff's officers and support staff at 300 where we need probably 350. We're down 30 positions at our sheriff's office today that we cannot fill to keep the public safe. It becomes a public safety issue when we don't have the resources and assets to address the concerns that the criminal element face upon not just you, the citizens, but your children and your businesses, property, theft, burglary, based on underlying fact that feeding the methamphetamine trade, that people have to have their drug. It's a must. It's not an option. Okay, it's not an option. They got to have it. So we see an increase in spike in property theft and burglary. We see an increase in aggravated battery. We see an increase in homicide. These are very real issues, and those are the things that keep me up at night, that wonder how we're going to address this with the shrinking economy that we have. Hopefully we're on the rebound. I pray that we are. I think that we are. But there's a lot of people up behind me that know a little bit more about that than I do. I'm out here to enforce the laws that are on the books. And so those are my concerns and how we're going to address them.
Okay, thank you. For the legislative candidates, and Darrell, we'll start with you, and you'll have 2 minutes for this question. And I know you're all just itching to answer it. If the I'm not going to ask you how you're going to vote on November 6th when it comes to the propositions. I'm going to take you back to February or March of 2011 and ask you how you would have voted when those 3 education reform bills came. If pretend today is that day you have to vote, how would you have voted back then, and how would you vote today? Knowing what you know now, how would you vote for those reform bills? You have 2 minutes, and I'd like to hear how you would vote on Prop 1, Prop 2, and Prop 3, and please explain your answer. And I know I'm only giving you 2 minutes, but do your best.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Vicki. I think most all of you know that I have been classified as the Lone Ranger in Canyon County. I voted against those 3 bills in the House, and I did it basically because of budgetary requirements of them. Most of you understand that one of the things that happened on those bills was to take $38 million out of salary-based apportionment. To me, when we've been talking for so long about having a qualified teacher in each classroom, it seems a little bit impossible to me that we'd want to take that much out of salary-based apportionment and try to reduce the number of teachers we have in the classroom for our students. When it comes to some of the other issues, there was another issue under Prop 1, which was pulled out of that bill on House Bill 335, which dealt with the 99% rule. Some of you may or may not understand what the 99% rule was, and that is for school districts who see a reduction in the number of students in the fall, they would receive 99% of what they received the year before because they'd hired teachers in the spring. This was reduced down to 97% in House Bill 335. That went away on July 1 of this year. So you ask, where would I be today? I have to tell you, I don't know yet because of the situation. I'm still looking at things. Most of my decisions are based on budgetary concerns. I just recently, not long ago on a JFAC tour, got the Department of Education's preliminary budget, and so I'm looking at that right now. I also have some information on the 99% rule that is not complete at this point in time.
Okay. Travis, we'll just go completely around, so you don't have to wait for me to call on you.
Okay, so if I were voting on those bills, I would vote no on Propositions 1, 2, and 3, and here's some of the reasons why. As a teacher, I've noticed how the political winds of change blow every now and again, and the winds of change are currently at a tempest fury. In an effort to privatize schools, bus teachers associations and funnel hard-earned taxpayer dollars to out-of-state companies, the Idaho legislature has sought to shut down the voices of parents and teachers. In Idaho, it is now illegal for teachers to talk about class size limits, lesson planning time, or the length of the workday. It is illegal for professional educators to have a conversation in good faith regarding student and teacher safety, funding for basic classroom supplies, or extra duties. And I think there are major issues here. With Proposition 2, linking teacher pay to student performance might be considered one small measure of a teacher's performance, but half of their evaluation. I'm not sure that's the best way to utilize our resources. Linking teacher pay to a test narrows the curriculum. In Idaho, the ISAT test only measures basically math, reading, and grammar, and there are many more subjects that are really important, like the arts and the humanities, and how do we effectively measure those? And unfortunately, high-stakes tests focus teachers and students' energy on only a few subjects and are a disservice to the many important subjects that are out there. Proposition 3, I would vote no on. Obviously, students need to be familiar with technology and navigating today's multiple learning platforms, and critical that they know how to use computers and navigate the internet and be able to synthesize information. But mandating online classes, I think that 2 is simply the slippery slope for online classes. Governor Otter has said publicly that he would like 12 online classes. Superintendent Luna has told the New York Times that he wanted 8 online classes. And just from my experience, it needs to be a choice and not a mandate.
So as a new gentleman coming into the legislature, if I'm elected, this is one of those issues that's going to take a lot more research for me to really delve into. This is a big issue in the state of Idaho, as I'm sure you are well aware. When I take a look at the propositions from my perspective, and again, I was not on the Senate floor to hear the debates, was not involved in that discussion. What I can tell you is I think the education system in Idaho can do better than it's currently doing. I would support all 3 propositions at this point in time. Proposition 1, really because what it does is it brings these meetings that have been going on behind closed doors for so many years out and open into the public. And frankly, when you have that much of your tax dollar going towards education, I as a taxpayer, and I'm sure you as a concerned parent, want to know what's happening in those meetings for the funding. Another portion of that, which is Proposition 2, deals with pay for performance for teachers. In my role as an insurance agent by trade, if I don't perform, I don't get paid. Now, I'm in agreement with this as long as there's a fair grading system for the teachers. And I don't think teachers get paid enough. I'll tell you that right now. So I would like to see more funding being put towards educators in the state of Idaho. However, I would like to see this approach and really, even if it is a trial and error session, I would really like to see if they could tie that performance back to the payment for the teachers. And from what I understand, over 85% of teachers are going to be receiving some kind of bonus underneath this new program. For Proposition 3, I don't buy into the notion that laptops are replacing our teachers. I don't buy into that one bit. I think that most kids use laptops right now very well, and there's been studies done in other one-to-one teacher-laptop ratio states that have showed that the loss percentage is less than 1%. On top of that, the 36 online education credits that, the 36 education credits for college that a student can earn is actually on the state's dollar, and with rising education costs, that is a big plus.
Going back to 2011, at the time, I thought that this was too much too soon. It was a huge package that there was no mention of during the November campaign. And then suddenly in January, we're faced with this extreme makeover of the education system. I would like to see taking each part of the package, unpacking it, and looking at it as a line item. It seemed like it was sold to us in a fashion of, you have to buy this in the next 5 minutes, or the deal is off. And I didn't like that part of it. As far as now, I'm going to vote no on Proposition 1, 2, and 3. And I'll tell you why. As a school board trustee for the last 5 years, I've been on the negotiating committee for the district, both before and after the Luna laws. And I can tell you that teachers negotiate in good faith, and not just for their best interest, but for their kids' best interest. And when they can't talk about classroom size or prep time, I just want to know who knows more about what is needed in the classroom than a teacher. As far as Proposition 2, which is pay for performance, I don't think teachers should be treated like commissioned salespeople. The teachers I know, and I know a lot of teachers in the district, I have teachers in my family, it's a passion, it's a calling. They don't do it for the money. Of course they want to get paid, but they don't do it, they do it for the kids. And I don't think that they're holding back their best lessons until this new bonus program kicks in. That's when they'll bring out their A game. I don't think so. Good teachers bring out their A game every day. Good teachers should be paid what they deserve. They should be respected. And bad teachers should be let go. It's simple as that. Laptops, I would like to know what is going to get cut to pay for all these laptops.
Thank you. You know, it's interesting. We have an argument being made that parents should be excluded from discussing class sizes and the safety of their children, that teachers who are not members of the union should be excluded, that should be done behind closed doors in the negotiation of the teacher contract. That's not appropriate. And that is what is being argued for. Teachers will not be precluded under those laws from advocating for class size limitations or prep time. They just have to do it with the school board in the open, where parents and citizens can also have input. That's how it works under Proposition 1. The IEA helped draft the bonus program that's Proposition 2. They approved it the year before as part of the race to the top. Not only that, it's based on a system that has been proven to work not someplace else, but in New Plymouth, Idaho, where they went from the bottom quarter to the top 5% in just a few years. It's proven to work in Idaho. As far as the laptops, it makes every single classroom a computer lab. Our students in high school will not have to wait for a computer lab. It opens up opportunities for how we can design our curriculum to better meet the needs of our children. These things aren't the end all of education, but they're important.
I'm coming from the point of view of someone who spent 35 years in education and who was raised in education, because my father was a coach and a teacher for 44 years. And something we always have to remember is change is never easy, but you know it's constant. Fall goes into winter, winter goes into spring, spring goes into summer. And we're constantly changing. And we've changed a lot since the 1850s. And some of the practices that we still use are practices that were from the 1850s. I voted for these bills, and I do it again, because I want our kids in Idaho to have the same opportunities that my grandson has in Virginia. And the reason why my Navy son-in-law is establishing his orthodontics practice in Virginia is because of the education program that the kids have there. I want the kids in District 11, which is made up of a lot of small school districts, to have the same opportunities that kids in Boise have, and Meridian have, and Eagle have. I want them to have access to the best teachers, and that's what these laws do. They give our kids in our small rural districts that thorough education, that opportunity for that thorough education that our Constitution tells us we're supposed to have. You've heard many of the reasons from others who supported this legislation or would support it. I was always concerned as a teacher because I could not be in on the negotiations because I didn't belong to the IEA. But yet I had to live under what they negotiated. Teachers will not lose their opportunity to have a say in what's going to happen under local control. And as for pay for performance, I want our good teachers, and that's at least 80% of them or more, to have the incentives to be the best they can possibly be for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. And there are three issues that there's arguments on both sides of this, but I think for me it comes down to the three principles. On Proposition 1, it's local control and openness of the process. That weighed out in my mind. On Proposition 2, it rewards excellence, and it rewards teachers who fill those hard to fill positions within the district. It's not that people or teachers or anyone involved is not trying their best, but when you do a great job, when you fill a position that you are having a hard time filling in the district, whether it's math, science, or whatever, you should be rewarded for that. And then 3 is I know that we need to support technology in our schools. We need to promote opportunities. I spent over half an hour today on the phone with Diane Yersina, who runs a manufacturing business in Nampa called Net Matrix. I don't understand what they do, but it's a high technology manufacturing company. And we talked a long time about about the need for her to get employees that they're able to teach technology to, and they're having a hard time. And we need to have students that are prepared to go to work for businesses like this or go on to college or whatever other opportunities there are. So I support those 3 bills.
Hey, Clayton.
Okay, for me, this is an easy one to answer. I would easily vote no on all 3 of these bills. My background is I have been an online teacher for the last 4 years, and I know exactly what kind of things that these bills will bring us. I have extensive experience with kids taking laptops home, kids in online courses, and I oppose these bills for 3 main reasons. Number 1, they're not research nor performance backed. I mean, study after study has shown that if you give kids 1-to-1 laptop ratio, it does not improve student performance. The state of Texas did a pilot program, and they bought laptops for 8 middle schools, and they studied for 4 years. They studied 8 other middle schools that didn't, and at the end they said, if you want to buy laptops, fine, but it doesn't improve student achievement in any way. Also, as someone who teaches online classes, I can tell you definitively, they are not for everyone. There is a very high attrition rate with online because it works great for some kids and it works terrible for others. And I really deeply oppose forcing kids to take online classes. I even feel it's a great choice for some districts. It's a terrible choice for other districts. I feel that this should not be mandated. It should be a choice. I also have a problem because I think that Students Come First primarily benefits for-profit education, out-of-state corporations, all of these folks that have lobbyists, and the expense is our local communities, our local teachers, our local students. You know, obviously, if we keep these laws in place, laptop companies are going to make a ton of money. Online curriculum providers are going to make a ton of money, and the price tag for that comes out of increased class sizes, us having reduced teacher staff to pay for it, and frankly, I don't see the benefit, especially since our schools are lacking so many of the very basic resources for teachers to do their jobs. It just isn't worth the payoff at all. It's the benefit is very little, the cost is very high.
First of all, I don't sit on the House Education Committee, so the first opportunity I had to see these three bills was when they came to the House floor. So I'm going to give you guys maybe a little bit of perspective of what it was like to sit in the gallery that day and vote on this particular piece of legislation. I did seek counsel on these issues and find out what I felt like was the best path forward for our students and our parents. And it was put to me this way. It said, Representative Crane, you've got two choices. Because of the shrinking budgets and the deficit we find ourselves in, we've got two choices. We can make drastic cuts to education, draconian cuts to education, or we can reform it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to choose to reform it. And so the first bill came through, and that was Prop 1. The gallery was packed in the House that day. It was standing room only. It was unbelievable. About a week later, Props 2 and Props 3 came through, and it was crickets. I kid you not, I leaned over to Eric Simpson and I said, hey, Representative Simpson, top of the third reading calendar, we're going to do those two ed bills today. Look at the gallery. Nobody was there. We start with Prop 2. We're nearly halfway through Prop 2 before members from the Idaho Education Association, and I believe there was 3 or 4 of them, came in, sat down up on the right-hand side. They sat there for Prop 2 and Prop 3. I'll tell you what bothers me about these issues is our children, and I've got a 4-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, are being used as political footballs to be kicked back and forth, and I'm sick and tired of that. Prop 1 phases out tenure. Prop 1 involves the parents. Prop 1 eliminates an evergreen clause contract. Prop 1 says collective bargaining. Your money will be, those negotiations will take place in view of the public. And so Prop 2, as was referenced earlier, Prop 2, the merit pay system was designed by the IA. They did have input on it. Prop 3, not too excited about it. The online course thing I'm fine with. The laptops, not that excited about.
Todd?
Thank you, Vicki. I'll opt in, I guess, since my opponent isn't here. I was not in the legislature last year. I'll be new to the state Senate if I'm elected. I'll talk about each of them individually. I would vote in favor of Proposition 1. I think it is appropriate to limit the union collective bargaining authority to salary and benefits. I trust the local elected school boards. Those folks run for those positions because they care about students, they care about teachers, and they care about parents. And I trust them to make the right decisions on other issues besides salary and benefits. I think the union negotiations do need to be conducted in open session. A school board is a public body, and its business needs to be conducted in the open. It gives the districts the right, if they're faced with a layoff, to make decisions based on other things, merit, besides seniority. And I also support the one-year contracts. That gives the local districts the flexibility to deal with changing conditions. Again, I trust them. Under Proposition 2, I'd also vote in favor of that. I support the concept of pay for performance. You reward those that excel. I agree that you need to monitor that methodology. That can be a challenge to determine the right method to measure performance. But if you treat everyone the same, you're just promoting mediocrity. And lastly, number 3, I agree that the increased use of technology is a good thing. I also think that this proposition does need to be monitored. But it reflects our society. Increased use of technology is what we're faced with every day. I come home and put my iPhone on the counter and it's gone in 2 seconds. I have to look which kid has it and what they're doing with it. Young people are engaged by technology. They're motivated by technology, and I think that increased use of technology will help them be more engaged in the education process.
Okay, Larry?
Thank you. I would vote against all 3 for the following reasons, starting with number 3, and that is that referring to it as laptops distracts from the course content. The course content in this case has no facility for being approved by the local school boards. Who's supplying that stuff that's going to be online? For number 2, I find that the testing that is proposed is inadequate as a quality measure. It's got to be more than just standard testing. As a longtime union man, I find number one is mere union busting.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Not to be too redundant, because I agree with a lot of the things that have been said already, but as it relates to Proposition 1, I definitely support that. I probably have varying degrees of support on the three individual propositions. I support number 1 the most. To me, the idea of phasing out tenure is critical. As I mentioned earlier, I've got 2 young kids in elementary school and public school, and as a parent, I've seen the difference between a very good teacher and a mediocre to poor teacher, and the impact that has on my children. So that's something that I strongly support. I definitely agree with rewarding good teachers, especially for taking difficult tasks or leadership positions. I agree that I think those metrics need to be watched, and I'm sure there's ways that we can change those, that if we find that those metrics need to be changed, that we do that. And as far as technology, I think the best reason to support Prop 3 is that it accomplishes something that hasn't been mentioned, and that's equalizing the access to technology to some of those kids who might go home and not have 4 laptops at home or iPads, and yet they're still being asked to do the same type of things in school that everybody else that has access to those things is being asked to do. So I think that's a benefit. Obviously, there's budget constraints that we have to be cognizant of, and at the end of the day, those are things that we have to look at. But so that's where I'm.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff's candidates. I'm not going to ask you how you would vote on those 3 propositions. But
We have an opinion.
okay. But I would like, Robert mentioned Sheriff Joe from Arizona. And I would just like to know, and we will start with Karen on this. On a scale of 1 to 10, where does Sheriff Joe fall on your hero list, and why? And you have 1 minute to answer this question.
The scale, it's at least an 8, quite frankly. The man is willing to take on the world and not apologize for it. He feels that he's doing the right things. I think he's doing the right things in a lot of ways. He gets sued probably every day, and it doesn't seem to bother him, which I really respect, because why roll over for these special interest people and special interest groups that have no clue what we do in law enforcement when we're out there trying to protect them? He has a great advantage because he has a great environment to put tents up, which would really help myself and Sheriff Smith in putting tents here in Treasure Valley, but we don't have that opportunity because of the weather. But I think that the most important thing is that he's willing to buck the system and say, you know what, what's right's right and what's wrong's wrong, and if you don't like it, don't come to my jail. I don't want you here anyway. So that's why he's looking out for the people.
Hey, Robert.
Well, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, as we've seen on television, we always see on television the news splatters images of horrendous crimes perpetrated by youthful offenders. Politicians eager to look tough on crime issue promises that they will cure America of this disease by severely cracking down on juvenile delinquency. Community policing, crime control policing, problem-oriented policing, ethical values are also important frameworks for a leader, and I believe he espouses those ethical values, and these values describe who we are at the core as individuals. The integration of values, knowledge, and skills which he uses is needed for the conscientious use of self and their application to constitute the defining core challenges developed by personal ethics, morals, and especially oaths taken for service and duty. Key word, oaths taken for service and duty. We can get into the Constitution. I've stood there with Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Sheriff Mack, and we have reaffirmed that oath together.
Okay, I'm going to ask the sheriff candidates another question, and Robert, you'll answer this, and you'll have 1 minute to answer this one as well. As the county shrinks and the cities grow, the need for cooperation within the different agencies here in Canyon County as well as the Ada County and surrounding counties, as that need increases, what will you do to make sure that that cooperative effort serves the people the best? Robert, 1 minute.
As sheriff, I would urge county officials to enter into the County Corrections Partner Initiative. It's called a CCIP. The next step would be to form a jail committee that would join with the ACLU in doing an education legal-based program which would examine the issues associated with the facility and identify the solutions to overcrowding. We can stand there day after day and spend hundreds of thousands giving it to the ACLU, which that money in turn goes to other special interests through private donations, which in turn create constitutional issues for all of us. So my situation is to create doors that are open to allow each group, whether it's from the city, the county, the state, the federal government, private institutions, private associations, an opportunity to sit down in a room like this and do an assessment of what's wrong, what's right, what can we afford, and how can we plan to improve all those conditions that we have. We will never, ever solve all the problems. We will never, ever be liked by everybody, but it has to be done.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, quite frankly, we already have that relationship, Vicki. Right now, we have the highest level of intercooperation by interagencies, state, local, and federal, that anyone in law enforcement in this area has known in their history and in our history. So quite frankly, what we will do and what we'll continue to do is develop what we already have in place. And myself, I have extensive experience of working with literally every law enforcement agency in the Treasure Valley, right up through the Attorney General's office and the United States Attorney's office, and literally every county prosecuting attorney's office, because you can't leave them out. We in law enforcement depend on the prosecuting attorney's offices, both state and federal. So as we shrink in resources and in area through the counties, we absolutely have to continue to develop and support our other law enforcement agencies like Nampa, Caldwell, Meridian, etc., because it's proven none of us can do this on our own. We simply don't have the resources. So we'll continue to support that idea.
Okay, thank you. Brent, we're going to start with you here at the top, and the question that we're going to ask is, and I could word this about 10 different ways, and someone's going to take it wrong, so sorry. We've had some situations in the last few years where we've had legislators who have made mistakes, have broken laws, and there's been a microscope on the legislature and a lot of questions about, do we have the proper oversight for the ethics of legislators in Idaho? What, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rank the ethics oversight today, and what would you do to improve it? And you have 1 minute.
Can I ask a clarification question before?
Yes.
House or Senate?
The legislature.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you can influence your buddies over in the Senate.
You ready? Currently what we have, I would give it an 8. The House had a little bit more stringent requirements, and it's in rule, it's not in law, as to how ethics investigations will be handled. The Senate passed the identical rule in the Senate this year. However, there was a subcommittee that met to deal with this issue made up of Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate members. And what I support, and what I actually went to the majority leader in the House and told him what I think that we need to do. I think we need to have a standing committee, just like the House Business Committee or State Affairs Committee. We need to have a permanent ethics committee. Those members need to be made up of members of the body. They're elected on a secret ballot. The Democrats elect members from their caucus. The Republicans elect members from their caucus, and they permanently serve on that committee for 2 years. It would be proportional representation, just like any other committee in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. But I do not support establishing another bureaucratic structure. One thing to keep in mind is this is a political environment.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Clayton?
I would agree with what Brent said about a standing committee, and the only difference I would have with that is I don't feel that it should be made up of legislators. I feel that it would be better off as people from the community, because I don't feel that people do a very good job policing their own. The other thing that I very strongly believe in, and one of the things that I've said over and over to people as I knock doors throughout this summer, is we will really have no true ethical behavior if we have a lack of political competition. You know, every day I drive to Boise for work, and there's an election going on in Boise. I see signs everywhere from both parties. I've seen more signs tonight than in most of the town here. And I mean, I've seen Brent and I's signs, but I'm not seeing very many signs here. And I think that's because we virtually have a one-party state, especially out here in Canyon County. And I really feel that if you do not have competition, the politicians will play their B game because they can get away with it. So I don't feel there'll be any true reform unless we have more competition.
And on the scale of 1 to 10,
5 or 6.
okay? Curtis?
I'd probably say 8. Since I've been in, there's been 2 ethics investigations. Those are done bipartisan by legislators. I felt like they took that job very seriously. When you say legislators shouldn't police themselves, when you have a jury, it's by your peers. People who've had the same experience as you have, and when I've watched the members of those committees take that very, very seriously and have tremendous amount of just stress and turmoil about what to do, trying to do the right thing. And so I think there are rules in place to deal with ethics violations. I've seen them actually being put into practice, and I thought they did a good job both times that it came up.
I think in the Senate now we have an 8. We probably had a 5 or a 6 before. The first thing you have to remember is no matter how many laws you pass or how many committees you establish, you can't legislate ethics or morality or integrity. Know your people and hold them accountable. In the Senate, we have rules that say if you have behavior that's unbecoming a senator, then you either come before a committee, an ethics committee appointed by the pro tem, or you resign, or you probably, in many cases, would go before the legal system. So having just a solid committee that you have to finance all the time, and maybe those people might, let's say if it's in the Senate, might have an ethical charge against them. It's better for the pro tem to appoint people at that time. Just as in a family, you have to hold yourselves accountable in order to keep your integrity.
Patty, what did you say on the scale of 1 to?
I think we have an 8 now in the Senate.
Okay, Jim?
I would agree with Senator Lodge that it's about an 8. Here's one of the problems. We just got through redistricting, and we had a supposedly independent redistricting panel. And I'm not convinced that you can get something that's totally nonpartisan. For that reason, I think that it's important to have numerical balance like we use in the Senate of 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans whenever we have an ethics panel. And the first thing we do is determine whether or not there's even a basis for further investigation. And then we go on from there if it needs it. There was one in the month that I was in the legislature this year. It was unanimous that there was no basis for the ethics charges. All of the Republicans and all of the Democrats on that committee agreed, and I think it works.
I've always had a problem with the concept of policing yourself. If that was, part of human nature, that we could actually do that, we wouldn't need any laws. We wouldn't need any rules. Just look how well it worked for Wall Street, policing themselves. It's human nature, and especially now when we have we have a one-party rule. Republicans have been in charge by an overwhelming majority now for 20 years, and it's just human nature to start to get lax. It is. It would be the same if Democrats had been in charge for the last 20 years with an overwhelming majority. That's why we need an independent commission, because party politics are just that. They're party politics. You're going to want to cover up for your own guys. That's just human nature.
And on the scale?
Currently, I would say 0.
All right. Brandon?
On the scale, I would agree with Senator Lodge and Senator Rice that we're probably at an 8. As a person who's never served in that chamber before, that house, I would say, as an outsider looking in, that I think that the legislature does a fairly good job of policing itself because it does have a bipartisan committee set up to handle those issues. And I think that at the end of the day, what we all need to be concerned with, as was mentioned here earlier, is that we conduct ourselves in the correct manner when we're serving the people of the state of Idaho. So I would give it an 8.
Okay. Travis?
I would give it a 5, and I've got major concerns not only with the legislature but other parts of state government. I think it's challenging when you have a state party that controls all 3 branches of government. It is difficult to monitor yourself, to leave the fox to watch the hen house. Not that I don't think Republicans aren't good people, because they are. But I think we do need an independent ethics commission. I would ask, why is it that 43 other states in the United States, as I understand it, 43 other states have independent ethics commissions? I think that there are good reasons for that, and I think that you do what you can to work together with your team, but you do sometimes you protect each other and you got each other's back, and it doesn't have to be a new law per se. It doesn't have to cost anything, but you can pull people from the community and other agencies that are already in the area to serve on such an independent commission. Thank you.
Okay. On your scale?
I said 5.
Okay. So, Daryl, Robert, Larry, and Todd, I'm going to excuse you from this answer. Everyone is taking their full time, which is great, but I usually can budget in an extra question or two, and I'm watching our clock and it's going away fast. So now I would like our contested candidates only to get your question ready for your opponent. You make it short, make it very short, and you have 30 seconds to answer that question. Okay? And Brent, we'll start with you. You'll ask your opponent a question. So your question shouldn't be a political statement. It shouldn't say how great you are. It should ask a straightforward question. And opponent, you should give a straightforward, short answer. Our timer, we're not set up for 30 seconds, but she's got the clock, and when it hits 30, I'm going to say thank you. Okay?
Ms. Treehall, you have identified yourself tonight as a moderate. And at your town hall meeting, we have on video where you said President Obama is a social and fiscal moderate. Could you describe for me what a liberal Democrat then looks like in your opinion?
Okay, I guess a liberal Democrat is one who really believes that government should intervene a lot in the economy and mostly grows with government, and I don't feel that Obama has done that. And let me see, also, usually they have very liberal stances on the social issues. That's, I guess, my view of a liberal Democrat.
Okay, Clayton?
For Mr. Crane, when you made your decision last year to support Students Come First, what role did constituent input play in this decision? And considering all the support vote no seems to be getting, is your viewpoint on these laws changing?
Well, I'll try to do this in 30 seconds. We have absolutely no staff. You're looking at the secretary, you're looking at the correspondence guy. So I try to do as best that I can to respond to my constituents. Try to read their emails, take care of their phone calls, and find out what the pulse of the public is. It's extremely important. I am there as a representative for the people of District 13 first, the citizens of Idaho secondly. So as far as a ranking, it's the number one thing to me is to know what my constituents are thinking.
Thank you.
Okay.
Curtis and Patty, you have a pass. Jim, you want to pose your question?
Be nice.
Be short.
I listened to your interview with the Press Tribune, and I read your thing, and you have proposed a minimum of $500 million a year in tax increases on every citizen that hit every citizen in the state of Idaho. Would you explain why you think that's a good idea in our current economy?
Well, since I've never proposed that, I find that to be a very interesting question. You may have surmised or made some kind of a interpretation of something I said. I would like you to explain how you come up with that number. I have never proposed a tax increase.
No, you don't get to explain, Jim.
We know each other. We've talked. And we're talking again. And I've always believed you to be a small government guy and that you believe that government should stay out of our private lives. So I would like you to explain why you voted yes to have the government mandate that a woman have a medically unnecessary procedure.
First, it's not necessarily a medically unnecessary procedure. Second, the principal role of government is to protect the rights of all people. Life begins at conception. As a representative of the people of Idaho, I have a constitutional duty to protect life. In our Declaration of Independence, it states that we believe that all men have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life comes first. It is the right upon which all others are based.
Thank you. Brendan, keep your question short.
Thank you. To my question to Travis Manning. Travis, your biggest principle, I believe, in running for this office is these students come first referendums. I'd like to know if you're going to be able to look at all issues in the state of Idaho as a broad perspective rather than just having blinders on for one issue.
Fair question. Thank you. You know, as I've talked to many legislators, usually there's one issue that brings them to the legislature. It could be healthcare, it could be First Amendment rights, it could be education. Personally, I really do have a passion for public policy, and education brings me to the table, but I would like to devour all that is on that table. I really do enjoy working with the community in the state and helping shape the laws and the policies for all of Idaho.
Thank you, Travis.
My question for you, Brandon, in your Press Tribune interview about the purchasing health insurance exchanges across state lines, you as an insurance salesman yourself, I was surprised at your response, which began with, "I have more research to do in this area." Can you please explain?
I'd be happy to. In my line of work, we do not sell health insurance. What we do is property, casualty, life insurance, and annuities. And when it comes right down to it, when people go out and buy an auto policy, they have a very good choice in doing that. I wanted to see, a little more of that with our healthcare costs, because I feel like our healthcare costs are being an extreme burden on Idaho families, and I'd like to see what ramifications we can do down at the House.
Okay, thank you. Robert, I'm going to ask you to pose your question to your opponent. Keep your question very, very short. And Karen, you have just 30 seconds to answer.
What ambitious vision to work independently with tireless efforts will you use for the collective restoration of the Bill of Rights for those deputies that have a class action lawsuit as veterans who went to fight for our country? What will you do to ensure that that doesn't happen again?
Well, I can't say that it's happened at all, but what we have is under USERRA, we actually look out for our veterans who get deployed to fight our wars and to protect our civil rights as Americans, and we hold their positions. Once they get back, they are able to walk back into the same position they left under USERRA and under our own policy guidelines at the Canyon County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, you want to pose your question, Karen?
Yes, Robert, based on your experience as a detention deputy with Whitey County Sheriff's Office, what other actual and true law enforcement experience do you bring to the table to work in a 300-plus personnel office and face the complex issues we face at Canyon County?
Yeah, of course there'll be internal and external opposition to my plan based on constitutional principles and values. This is inevitable and may prove that this is a great opportunity to get my programs across. My ability to accomplish my intent will depend on how I'm able to address the criticisms which you have just asked me. For example, veteran officers may resist my efforts to transform the way they conduct operations, and I will win them over by enlisting them and integrating their collective wisdom into my plan, demonstrating in some sense
Thank you.
how and what they had previously done.
Thank you very much. All right, you guys did a great job with that. We're going to do closing, and again, unopposed candidates tonight, I'm going to give you a break. You do not have to give a closing, okay? So we're going to start with Robert. You're going to go ahead and give your 30-second closing, okay?
30 seconds.
30-second closing. This is the true test of a good politician.
Wow. Do you want a prayer? 30 seconds, ready to start. A successful law enforcement policy takes a constitutional multilateral approach whereby crime targeting, community relations, officer commitment, and finally clear modes of assessment and accountability are merged into a coherent modology. Once I've received the results, they must be processed, interpreted, and communicated regardless of the trends. The data then must be used to provide feedback on the policy itself and to adapt it more effectively to the realities as best they can be apprehended. Once feedback loop is established and you demonstrate that I am listening to the data regardless of the outcome, I can adjust as needed. Thank you. Vote for Robert Muse.
Thank you, good night, for coming. Thanks for coming.
Okay? And we're going to go to the top and start with Travis.
If elected, I will first base my decisions on the voice of the good citizens of Caldwell, regardless of party. Second, I will base my decisions on my own ethical and moral beliefs. Lastly, I will adhere to my party platform. Caldwell demands a different perspective, one that truly takes into account the needs of its citizens. And Caldwell demands a leader with a lifetime of service and history of following and sustaining the laws of the land. My opponent supports the Luna laws, but is not very familiar with them from the ground level. Idaho parents, students, and teachers deserve someone who will be willing to engage in meaningful discussion about improving schools. The choice going forward for Caldwell is clear. Please vote Travis Manning for House Seat 10A.
Thank you. Brandon?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank everybody for coming tonight. As your 2012 Republican of the Year award winner for all of Canyon County, I am very excited about the opportunity to possibly represent you at the state capitol. I've had a good bout of service here in Canyon County for the last 5 years. I hope to continue that service as your state representative, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that under my watchful eye, Idaho remains the best state in the union. Thank you.
Elections are about choices, and I will vote to repeal the Luna laws. I would vote no when the ultrasound bill comes up again if I'm elected. And I will fight for a true balanced budget without debt and without interest payments. And my name is Leif Skiving. I'm running for State Senate in District 10, which is Caldwell, and I ask for your vote.
I'm very honored to be able to represent the citizens of District 10. I take it as a sacred obligation to be accessible. That's one of the reasons that I publish my personal cell number, and it's 891-4178. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can, and I will respond. I appreciate all of the support that I've received, and I would ask for your vote on November 6th. Vote Jim Rice. Thank you.
Patty? Oh, your opponent isn't here tonight. Curtis, you have a pass as well. Clayton?
All righty. I am not a politician. This is not something that I really saw in my career path. At heart, I'm a teacher, and I love teaching. I mean, it's my passion, and I just feel really strongly that the state of education in Idaho is a mess. I mean, we don't have books in our schools. We don't have basic resources, and the Luna laws are going to lead us in the wrong direction. And that's why I'm running. I know what it means to run as a Democrat in Nampa, but that's why I've knocked so many thousands of doors this summer, and I think we've got plenty of businessmen in our legislature. It's time to put a few educators in there, especially considering what's going on right now.
Thank you. And Brent?
Thank you. First of all, it has truly been an honor for me to serve the constituents of District 13. I want to say thank you for that privilege. As you can see, I've laid out tonight that when I ran 6 years ago, I said I'd fight to protect your families, your freedom, and your finances. I have honored that promise. I've held up on my end of the bargain, and I'm asking you for another term. I'd appreciate your support on November 6th. Vote Brent Crane, State Representative.
Thank you very much. Candidates who did not have an opponent here tonight, thank you for being such great sports. And I want to thank everybody here in the audience. All of the participants won tonight's debate, and you all followed the rules very, very well. So if we could just get the presidents to do that, the presidential candidates, right? So thank you. We have another forum next Tuesday night at College of Idaho in the Langlois Center. That is to discuss, we will have the top spokespeople from both sides to be there to talk about the pros and cons of Proposition 1, 2, and 3. So we hope you can join us. You'll also be able to watch the live streaming from KBOI TV. And of course, we'll have a story in the paper tomorrow about this, and you can watch the whole thing or have someone else point them to the video if they want to watch the whole thing again. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your participation, and thanks to Nampa City Hall and our timers from the Chamber of Commerce of Nampa.
I'm going to do 6 of my signs on a 4x8 sheet, so I've got one as big as yours.
Thank you.
No, I'm just joking. Oh. Those are big signs. That's for certain.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. If you guys could help out and take
It's a big learning curve. That's for certain. It's totally different than anything